Now, I would like to say that in the past 5 years, what happened is that the two political parties had a broad kind of understanding, even if they had there was convergence of interest.
In the last segment of the discussion, we want to talk about PTI, Imran Khan, and also once we've done with that, I am very keen to know on two fronts: one, India, and we discuss somewhat of it, and war on terror. How is different parties using these two? I mean, in India, as we know, hasn't been much of a factor, but we know war on terror has been a factor in these elections, and we know that 2014 next year is also going to, as you mentioned, the withdrawal of the American troops. So let's first begin with Imran Khan. We touched on that, how he doesn't really have any sort of concrete but let's start with the turncoats. I mean, we know that Imran Khan's party in many sense is actually sort of a dustbin in which whoever left the other parties has sort of come in. And Aisha Siddiqa writes about how it's the most successful ISI project in recent times, sudden jump of PTI into the mainstream. And in fact, I was in Pakistan in 2010, and almost everybody was laughing when we were talking about whether even he would manage to even come third or fourth. And now suddenly all the polls say that he's sort of neck to neck with Nawaz Sharif's party. So I mean, tell us a bit about this connection and the sort of growth of Imran Khan parties, and almost overnight in that sense.
I think, look, after that, he had that rally in Minar-e-Sharif, and very rallied so many youths, and suddenly that is when people started calculating that actually Imran Khan is the next best thing to happen to Pakistan. I also met Dr. Shirin Mazari, who was that
very anti-Indian. Yes. And
I met her, but she told me I'm much more anti-America than anti-India at that point of time. But again, there was also some sort of problem. You suddenly saw, last couple of months back, last year, you suddenly saw some Tahirul Qadri coming.
Yes.
I remember I asked someone, how come, I don't know about this person?
But he was in India, by the way, launching his own book before that, if you remember.
So, suddenly Tahirul Qadri factor came in in such a big manner. You thought nobody else is there, only Tahir Qadri. He is going to put it, really,
and media plays a role. I mean, like at one point we thought it was only Anna Hazare and Kejriwal in India. There's no other party. It's a similar problem, I guess.
Suddenly now you see Imran Khan again coming up. So therefore, that is where I have my reservation. If you look at different election analysis, the PTI has never been such a big factor in the past. A party which never had, even a 5 seat in the parliament to boast of, suddenly is coming first in some, according to some sources, second in some sources, something in some sources. It becomes a bit difficult.
But is this, I'm sorry I'm intervening, but is this, let's say, if it was in India, the way media plays it up, is it a media phenomena, or would you think that really there is some sort of the establishment behind it in that sense?
Yeah, definitely establishment has been behind it. That is what people assumed. And even if he says that in one of the, not now, few months back when he gave an interview to Karan Thapar, he very clearly said that if he comes to power and on the India policy, he very clearly said that, look, I am the boss. If I am not the boss, then I will not be the Prime Minister. Why should I be the Prime Minister if I have to listen to the army chief on the India question? The Shirin Mazari thing also came up at that point of time. So therefore, I think, yes, to some extent, cobbling together a political party and making it even for the people to think that it can be a force to reckon with, I think definitely it has the establishment blessing. Because if you look at the elements who have been the supporter of PTI, especially the extreme elements, now those extreme elements are hand in gloves with the establishment. So if they are the people who are supporting the Tehreek-e-Insaf, so therefore I think definitely there is some sort of
and he very proudly, his party president, what's his name, I forget it, Javed something, he very proudly announced that Defy Pakistan was a name that he had personally suggested to Hafiz Saeed. So when the formation of Defy Pakistan, so in many sense his party is very much into sort of hand in gloves with but Brijesh, I wanted to ask you, speaking of Pakistan, Indian elite loves Imran Khan. just loves Imran Khan. And Tariq Fatah in an interview to me speaks about how Indian middle class women gets orgasm the moment they look at him. So what is this India's obsession? And before we come back and speak about the youth, what is this India's obsession?
The two things which India loves about is one is cricket, other is Pakistan. And he has been a great good looker and a legendary cricketer who is seen as an architect of reversal of Pakistan isolation in the world of cricket also, and brought home the World Cup. So in that way, he's considered a big phenomenon. And obsession with most of the thing is that he's yet to be tested. I mean, in one way, he's yet to be proved this thing. But our charm with Imran Khan in particular runs along, of course. I mean, it's been more than like 20, 30 years. Been big fan of cricket, and there's legendary cricketing rivalries with Pakistan, and the phenomenal good looks, the Pathan good looks of him studying in Oxford. So you have all the the desired elements, if I may say so, of which can soon the Indian elite. So of course Imran Khan remains a charismatic figure, but I mean, how
would
much
Indian
of a figure
elite want Imran Khan as the Prime Minister?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Indian elite might wish as much they want to, but
they did want Musharraf to stay on as the president.
So it's the electorate of Pakistan which has to decide. But how proven he is, I mean, how much of a political force he is, remains to be seen. I mean, he's yet to be a tested leader. Emmanuel, there's one question I would like to ask you. What exactly do you think of him as a? I mean, what kind of person he comes across to you?
Yeah, you've interviewed him. Tell us.
Valuing in this whole the charismatic. I mean, in his own mind,
in his own mind,
larger than life image.
He in fact gave a statement saying that when I was about to win the cricket World Cup, I knew it. I'm sure I'm going to be the Prime Minister. What kind of person he is? I mean, you've interviewed him, spent some time with him.
I think, I asked him this question actually, because I asked him this question. This guy had many lives. He did many things in his life. So I asked him, who are you exactly? And he believes himself as a man on a mission. It's very important to remember that Imran Khan, in his childhood and as a young adult, was not so much of a practicing Muslim. He rediscovered Islam when his mother was about to die, all right? So he's a kind of a newborn Muslim, if I may say so. He believes that as a Muslim he has a duty of doing something for his country. So that makes him a very nationalist leader. Secondly, he's not only a cricketer, he's also a philanthropist. He built an anti-cancer hospital. We have to remember that when he built this hospital, he had to travel all over Pakistan to receive donation, ask money, and people gave donation to him. So I think that in a way, he built also his popularity on his image, which is someone who is genuinely committed to work for his country without asking anything in return. That's very important, and I think that in a way that's what appeals to the people.
To an extent, he gave up his personal life. I mean, one of the reasons of his divorce is perhaps the way the country perceived his, converted wife, white.
So in this regard, it's not so. At some point, he's managed to build his popularity. As such, it's not unsurprising to see that some political leaders like Shah Mahmood Qureshi from Multan, who is the former Pakistani foreign minister, decided to join PTI because some political leaders thought that maybe it's a good way for them to retain their influence in the area where they are. So in this regard, maybe he was supported in a way or so by the establishment, as you say, but I have no proof of that. I'm just saying that the popularity of this guy is not purely artificial. It's not only because, maybe just not purely because of kind of a support by the military establishment of that sort of a
thing. But what explains this sudden spurt? Because I mean, like if you know, even if you read a whole host of things or reports which comes out of Pakistan, I mean, and foreign papers, not especially Pakistani papers. I mean, 6 months back, his support was not that huge, and all of a sudden he's such a sudden emergence of Imran Khan as a phenomenon. What explains that?
Well, first, it's slightly older than that because I remember that he held a very huge rally at the end of 2011 in Lahore. It was a big rally, I think. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So it's not so new. Secondly, PTI did not contest the last election in 2008, so that's something we have to remember. So that's. But coming back to your question, you also have to remember that Pakistan. I mean, the media in Pakistan have been writing on various corruption scams extensively over the last couple of years, whether it is the power rental scam, whether it is the dramatic financial situation of the PIA, the Pakistan International Airlines. So the corruption has been very much on the headlines of the media of the last couple of years. And I think in a way, Imran Khan also managed to build his popularity on that. Coming back to the point I was saying, that he had he had a headway to say to the people, look, your leaders are corrupt, I'm not corrupt. I built a hospital for this country. I could have been a very well-paid cricket commentators working for TVs and earn huge money. I decided to do something else. I decided to work for this country. And to conclude, remember that after he felt during this rally a couple of days ago, he was on his bed in Lahore, and he said he had this very emotional appeal to the people, saying, I did whatever I could for you. So now it's up to you to take your destiny in your own hands, because the Quran says that people who want to live like Shiites will remain Shiites their entire life. So his popularity has been in a way built on that aspect.
Smruti, if he becomes the Prime Minister, what kind of Prime Minister will he be? I mean, we know personal integrity intact. He's not going to be. He has enough money. He doesn't really need to build up, fill his coffers. Neither is he an industrialist like others. Neither is a Mr. 10%. What kind of Prime Minister would he be, and would he be able to sort of fulfill his dream, or is it just going to be another elections after a few?
See, if you say that, if he's going to be the next Prime Minister, then I feel that, he may be personally committed, he may be uncorrupt, but can he ensure that his colleagues will be non-corrupt? Like, for example, look at the example of India. Look at Manmohan Singh and his cabinet. That makes it very clear. Your personal commitment and corruption is actually not the only thing, how the people are going to perceive you and the party. That is number one. Number two is that he is passionate, he is idealistic, because he has never, been in power, doesn't know how the power works in our kind of setup. So therefore, I feel that probably, it is not very easy for him to fulfill some of the commitments. I think he's going to take action against the corruption within 90 days.
90 days, that's what he says.
Some 90 days thing is there, which becomes very difficult for him to fulfill. Certain thing he may have promised that appeals to the youth, but I'm not very sure those he will be able to fulfill those promises, because it's not so easy. You have system, you have institution, there are things which are very, very deep rooted. You just come to power, and within a year, if you think you're going to clean up, no, you are not.
Not even a year, 3 months.
So therefore, you build up a particular image, and if you are not able to fulfill that, that also creates instant kind of dissatisfaction. Which, if Nawaz Sharif comes, okay, your expectation is much more moderated. That okay, this person has 1, 2, 3, 4 things which that he won't be able
to do. But for India, who will be the best Prime Minister for India?
I think probably tried and tested are the Sharif and the Pakistan People's Party, and during Pakistan People's Party certain initiative.
But compared to Sharif and Pakistan's People's Party, even between two, who is the better one? I mean, at least Nawaz Sharif went ahead, had the historical sort of accord when Vajpayee was Prime Minister.
Now, after the Pakistan People's Party being in government for the past 5 years, I will rate both the parties as same. Because they tried to say that the nuclear first use is not against India. The people who are fighting Kashmir are terrorists, which created a problem with JUIF. He is also the person who extended the hand of friendship. And also at the same time, the MFN is something he took the initiative during his time. So therefore, I would not say the Pakistan People's Party, is bad, and the PML-N, like if you look at the past record, they also have done well. But I think the most important thing for all the two political parties, especially, is that the more they speak of India threat, the more they, their leadership will be under threat, and democracy will be under threat. So therefore, that is a learning lesson. I think probably the two political parties are going to moderate, but I don't see any dramatic change of relationship between India and Pakistan. And like for example, the three political parties now, Pakistan People's Party says the core issue of Kashmir. Nawaz Sharif's party says that it is, it will see the UN resolution and self-determination. Now, Imran Khan's party says, the relationship with India will be decided on the basis of nuclear confidence building, and he has used something called a conflict resolution mechanism. ANP says it is going to have good relations with India. So I think they are much more practical now than they have been before. Also on the issue of Kashmir and in general the relationship with India.
Last segment, war on terror. We cannot ignore it. 2014, Americans are withdrawing. Pakistan is already a front sort of on this war, and now it's going to have the entire war on its on its own hand without the American support, perhaps some bit be indirect support. And of course there's talks about India versus Pakistan intensifying in Afghanistan. Any of these leaders, do they have, let me begin with you, any of these leaders, do they have practical, realistic viewpoint or sort of roadmap ready with them, which would, of course, you cannot ignore the army, because army is going to be fighting their battle. Are they realistic about it? Have they made it very clear how they're going to deal with it? And apart from the rhetorics of it, or like, you know, throwing the Americans out and blah blah, which PTI has been talking, have the other parties been practical about how they're going to deal with it? And of course there's a factor about Taliban versus certain parties and not versus other parties.
Well, as you say, Imran Khan and Nawaz Sharif have been very clear on the fact that they want to engage with talks on the militants. So it's very clear.
But would these militants be the Afghan Taliban or just the Pakistan?
I'm talking about the Pakistani Taliban. Now, regarding the relationship with Afghanistan, again, it's not an issue which have been very much discussed during the election campaign. Nonetheless, it's true that this campaign happened in a moment where the relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan is very difficult. Kabul is feeling that Pakistan is not doing enough to deprive the Afghan Taliban from their safe haven in Pakistan, that it's not doing enough to convince the Afghan Taliban to go on the negotiation table. And the problem, it's very difficult to move on this aspect because, first of all, Pakistan is afraid of the influence of India in Afghanistan, and secondly, because Pakistan is also blaming the Afghan government for not doing enough against the Pakistani Taliban who have safe haven in Afghanistan. So it's a very complicated relationship. And it's even more complicated because Amit Karzai recently said that Afghanistan will never recognize the border Durand line. So it's hard to say, you know, what will happen. I haven't heard any kind of statement on Afghanistan.
Nobody is clear.
Nobody is really clear about that.
But will it be like, will the American exit also consume Pakistan in a much bigger way than till now? That, you know, they have a war on terror with American help, American soldiers there, they're just taking the money, providing logistical supports and the rest of the thing. But once the American withdraw, will the role of Pakistan in Afghanistan increase so exponentially and make sure that keeping India out of the equation, will their new theatre would be Afghanistan rather than Kashmir?
It's hard to say. I'm not so much of a big specialist of Afghanistan, so to tell you whether it's realistic, that's hard to say, really hard to say. But one point, I mean, since we talk about war on terror, if we have a coalition government headed, let's say, by PML-N, or if somehow PTI is part of it, for sure, I mean, the drone attacks will be a big problem. And I remember very well something that, you know, Imran Khan told me during this interview. I have never heard about any Pakistani politician having such statement, but at some point I asked him, okay, if you are Prime Minister, Mr. Imran Khan, will you order the Pakistani force to shoot down the drone? He said, yes, I will. If the CIA doesn't want to stop the drone attacks, if at some point I will go to the United Nations to persuade them, but if at some point they don't want to change their posture on that, I will order the PAF to shoot down the drones. So all this proves that at some point the posture of the civilian government towards the United States on war on terror will be tougher.
But I would like to add on this, like, you know, the ordering the PAF to shoot down the drone will be an army decision. He may be bragging that he's going to order and it is going to be followed, because most of these decisions, you know, even the operation of the drone has been under certain agreement, certain understanding, and, you know, nobody knows about it, bits and pieces it comes. But the Pakistan Supreme Court has said that drone attacks are illegal. So that will create a problem for the civilian government, at least to see that the drone attack does not take place.
This is also, I think, it's true. But one point is that, first of all, Waziristan is a no-go area.
Yeah, not
so
Waziristan.
The Supreme Court can say whatever it wants. I don't think it's going to change anything.
No jurisdictional this thing.
Yeah. And one point regarding the drone attacks are very important. I mean, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, the New York Times published a very interesting paper about that, claiming that there was a kind of an agreement between the CIA and the ISI, and the agreement was that the ISI found the drone attacks very useful because it was a way for the ISI to target leaders of the Pakistani Taliban without targeting leaders of Afghan Taliban.
Yeah,
So in a way,
Hmm.
it's also true. It's also important to point out that these drone attacks are also very convenient for the Pakistan army.
Hmm.
I think in a way they find it very helpful. We should not forget that Betullah Masood, the former head of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, was killed by a drone attacks, and it's not the only one. Akimullah Masood was, I think, escaped two strikes. So yeah.
So, lastly, Smruti, biggest problem in the hands of the prospective Prime Minister, war on terror?
I think, well, to some extent, the war on terror will be a problem, but not in the manner which how it has been projected, with the Imran Khan party, that it is going to be a problem, because I think this is a major issue. Now, if you have seen Kiani's speech, the recent speech on the 30th of April, I'm forgetting the occasion, where he very clearly said the war on terror which is happening is Pakistan's own war, because there has been a lot of reluctance among the political parties to own up the war, that it is their war. Like if you look at Imran Khan's manifesto, he says if he comes to power, he will not allow Pakistan to fight other countries'
People's
war.
Huh.
So therefore, in that context, if you look at Kiani's speech, he very clearly says that it is our war. Pakistan army has lost many personnel in this war on terror, and he has owned up the war. And I think that makes it much easier for the political parties now to own up the war. Now, war on terror has two dimensions. It has the external dimension of the Afghan Taliban. It has the internal dimension of the TTP. Now, as far as the internal dimension is concerned, I don't think the political parties have any difference of opinion that the TTP has to be tackled. Both, in 2008, when the Swat operation and Bajour operation took place, initially the Pakistan People's Party government offered, a peace talk. One saw the Swat agreement coming, and it was not actually observed. So you saw the army, moving for the military operation. So therefore, they will always offer the peace talk. Try to resolve it that way, but if that is not going to, result in any kind of, dealing with those TTP, I think the military will always remain an option. So therefore, it is important for all the political parties to deal with the TTP phenomenon, because it is not confined now to the tribal areas as it was, some 5-6 years back. Now TTP has reached, South Punjab. And second thing is that how do you draw a line? I have a problem with this dividing the entire war on terror to internal and external. There are organic links. There are also links of intelligence. There are, so therefore, you just can't say we are going to fight with the TTP without fighting the Afghan Taliban. I think that is going to be problematic, and that is why there will be tension between the.
But even the
Syrian
Pakistani army, I clearly remember sitting in Rawalpindi, and they had a presentation for us. In fact, they were very clearly sort of making this difference that look, the problem is, this side of the line, everything is bad, but that side, that's fine. They're fighting the freedom thing. Taliban on the other side, Afghan side is freedom fighters, and this side is our terrorists.
And how they're going to justify, the recent attack, like he said, Pakistan has been accusing Afghanistan of sheltering some of the terrorists. Now, I find it very difficult that they don't recognize that these are being sheltered by the very element who are supposed to be good Taliban.
True.
Now that becomes a bit difficult.
So lastly, I'm going to ask each of you your predictions. Smruti has been writing down numbers in terms of, and she's been very conservative unlike others. So let's, I'll come to you at the last. Let's begin with Brijesh. Who are expecting to be the Prime Minister, or which party according to you?
I think Nawaz Sharif appears to be the best bet till now.
Okay.
He won't be getting a clear majority, but to what I know, I think he's going to be the next Prime Minister.
Okay.
He should be the next Prime Minister.
Okay. Emmanuel.
Yeah, probably Nawaz Sharif, but it doesn't mean anything, because if I believe he will have to set up a big coalition, a wide coalition, which will make setting up a government very difficult. So, it's very difficult to answer this question. Really.
Okay, but not Imran for sure.
No, not Imran for sure. No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Now coming to you.
Now Nawaz Sharif party will be emerged as the largest party. I agree with him that will going to be a coalition, but this coalition also will be determined by who shares power with whom in Sindh and who shares power with whom in Punjab. So that will decide the nature of the coalition which is going to come to power. But I think at the end of it, they will come to some point where they would not allow the advantage of this election to be squandered away because of the fight of forming the government. So I still bet on
But if
Nawaz
there
Sharif.
is a coalition government, who are the prospects? Would you see PPP coming together with PML-N?
I would rather see PPP PML-N coming together, but I don't see PTI coming with the PML-N. Definitely, PML-N is the largest party. That is what we are saying.
So the chances of PTI anywhere near power is
because I always put both the JUIF and the MQM as the ruling party. So that doesn't matter. Whoever is in power in Islamabad, these two will be the coalition partner. But MQM chance will be depend on who forms the government in Sindh. If they are with the Pakistan People's Party, then it becomes very difficult, to go with Nawaz, or they will have some sort of.
But any of the provinces, do you see PTI coming to majority? Any of the provinces?
Perhaps KP.
Perhaps. You also mentioned this.
Perhaps
right?
KP. Perhaps.
Okay.
Perhaps. But it's risky. It's a risky business in Pakistan to do predictions.
Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us in this discussion. It's been really interesting. Do watch this video, and tomorrow there's the election. I think Sunday the results are coming up.
No, I think Sunday they will start counting.
They'll start counting. So by next week sometime, we should know who's going to rule Pakistan and what's their policy going to be towards India. Till then, next week perhaps we're going to join with some more guests discussing Pakistan or something else. If Pakistan becomes interesting, maybe we can have Smruti and Emmanuel back to see if their predictions has been true or not. Thank you for watching.